Let's start with the hot topic that, for whatever reason, has continued to drag on here, and that is the status of your coach in Bruce Boudreau. I guess technically at the moment he's a free agent, as you guys ponder the mutual option that exists on his contract for next season. Can you give us an update just at the moment on where things stand with Bruce?
Well, we told him that we wanted him back prior to the season ending, and he took a little time away from Vancouver and spend time with his family and think a little bit, but he'll be back with the Canucks.
Okay. One of the interesting things that came from, your sort of season wrap press conference was just the idea that you had said, you believe a coach needs to be in place for a full season before they earn an extension. I was just curious, Jim, where does that philosophy come from? Is that something that you believe, or is that more of an organizational Canucks philosophy?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you can help me with the history that you're going to tell me how many people have done that in the past. I just think it's a very short period of time. It's my philosophy. It's my decision. And I just think it's a short period of time. Contract was negotiated 5 months ago. And I believe both sides should honor that contract.
So, Jim, you know what? You obviously have a history of a lot of success, and you built teams in different fashions. You've been patient sometimes, and then from a media standpoint, I love it. Jim Rutherford trades more than anyone. It's so you're willing to make deals when you have to. When you come in now, and you talk about the coach's contract, even yourselves, how long do you find it takes to really get a sense of what your organization has and how you can maybe implement that moving forward?
Well, you like to know what's going on in a short period of time. Maybe you usually say, give me a month or two. But I think we have a real good understanding now of where we're at with the Vancouver Canucks. And it's what I said from the start. We have to unravel some of these contracts here to get more cap space to try to make some changes going forward. We still have some work to do on that. Now we're getting into the season. Once the Stanley Cup's awarded, that there will be a lot more movement, a lot more interest in what teams are trying to do to change their teams. We're presently in the middle of having our amateur and pro scouting, so we're getting everybody's opinion on what they think of players and where they think we can get better. So I would say at this point in time, after being here 5-6 months, along with the changes in the front office, that we have a pretty good handle on what we'd like to do.
So, Jim, you look at your team. You've got a really sound goaltender in Demko. You got Quinn Hughes, who's obviously a dynamic defenseman. You got Pedersen and Horvat, lots of young, skilled guys. When you look at the construction of your team, do you just feel it's a little bit of tweaking? You mentioned the salary cap, or is there one area that you really feel as an organization you need to improve for next season?
Well, I think not just for next season, but in the long run. We don't have really any young right shot defensemen. We don't have any young center icemen coming. Those will be some of the things that we'll focus on here, whether we can do it this off season or it takes another year or two. But that's one priority we have. We have to put together a team for next year where we have more balance and more depth, more balance throughout our forwards, throughout our defense pairings. So the minutes can be shared a little bit better and give these guys, a better chance to perform at almost 100% every game.
So, Jim, when you're looking for that balance and depth, where do you anticipate trying to find it? Is it more of a free agent thing, or is that something that you accomplish by trade acquisitions?
It'll be both. If we have the room to do it, the first step's going to be, is there anything we can do here to free up some cap space to be part of the off-season game that everybody gets into? And, with the cap and with teams that have been all in here to win a cup, there's teams that are going to have to get rid of players, just to be cap compliant. And we would like to be in a position that we're at least in that conversation with those teams that we can make a deal. But if we can't clear up cap space, then we're not going to be able to be in it.
It's hard to do that and create that cap flexibility. Do you have a target in mind of an idea of how much you'd like to shed in order to get to where you want to get to?
Well, we can't shed too much. We're a non-playoff team, so we don't want to take too much away from what we already have here. We would like to get younger, in the sense that, get guys maybe 26 years old or younger, that we can bring that team together within the next couple of years. We've got some very good young players, as you pointed out here a couple of minutes ago. And so we certainly got a group of players that we can work with here. But I'm not going to say we're just going to limit the players that we add to the 26-year-olds and younger. If the right deal comes along for somebody that's older, that's a veteran player that can have an impact on our team, then we'll also look at that.
Jim, you mentioned you weren't a playoff team, but if you look at your record since Bruce came in and you came in, the Canucks were infinitely more competitive, right? I know you can't talk about what happened prior to you, but when you're doing your evaluation, your analysis, how much of that time, can you pick a certain point of the season and say that's maybe more of a reflection of our team rather than what happened in the first 2 months where you just dug a hole as an organization?
Well, no, I don't think you can. Our team, Bruce did a terrific job, and he was the ideal guy at the right time, because he came in, he's a player's coach, he motivates guys, and he got the most out of most of the players, and so that part was good. We are very fortunate. We have a franchise goalie. I mean, Demko is a terrific goalie. He wins a lot of games for us, and you need that goalie to be a contending team. I want to see us get to a point where we don't have to lean on him as much and as many games to win those games. So that gets more to the point of getting a little more structure in our game, and getting that structure where it makes it easier for the players to play game in and game out. And Bruce is capable of doing that. Like I said, he did a terrific job. He does a lot of good things with the players, and we have to see what we can do to help that situation, help the coaching staff get to that point where we can win on a consistent basis.
Jim, you have a reputation of being a very fair and really looking at the human side of things from people that I've talked to over the years that interact with you. And, Brock Boeser, when the season was over, spoke very openly. You could sense the emotion and just how difficult this season has been for him because of his father. When you evaluate your players, how much does the human element, and Brock was very public about that, but I'm sure there's things about other players that maybe doesn't get public. How much of that comes into the evaluation for you when you look at your team moving forward and the type of personalities and skill set you want?
Well, it's part of it. And we can never control in life what different issues that different people have to deal with. And unfortunately for Brock, he's dealing with this with his father, and it's tough, and it affected his play. And we were aware of it all along. I've had conversations with Ben Hankinson, and we've talked about what he's dealing with. So, with that being said, he was capable of having a better year than he had, but he still had 23 goals, and he's a good player. So, certainly, we feel for Brock, and when we evaluate him, that will be part of the evaluation.
It seems like those talks or conversations with Ben will continue as you try and get a deal done with Brock. Is there a chance, I think there's been lots talked about, do you go long-term? Do you go short-term? Is there a chance maybe that you just issue a qualifying offer and that ends up, sort of taking care of it?
Yeah, there's that possibility. I mean, that will be step one. And we can fit his qualifying offer in next year. It's not like we're squeezed that we can't fit the 7.5 million in on a 1-year deal. It would seem to me that it would make sense with him being as young as he is at 25, to have a deal with a little bit of term on it, but maybe not that big long-term deal, because, if you did a 2-3 year deal, he's still pretty young to get his long-term deal. So, but we'll get into that at some point in time. I'm sure they're getting Brock and his agent are getting prepared for what they think makes sense, and same for the Canucks.
It's funny because asking about the qualifying offer, I think a lot of teams and probably agents as well are afraid of it, but sometimes it can actually work out pretty well. You saw Patrick Laine and the Columbus Blue Jackets last summer. They did the same thing. 1-year qualifying offer accepted, and now they're in the process of talking about what that means moving forward. Is it the worst thing if you end up doing that?
I don't think so. No. I mean, from our point of view, he's still team controlled following that. So we're pretty open to anything at this point in time.
Gotcha. And also on your docket, among the other things, we're talking about building out your big salary cap picture and what it looks like for the next number of years. You mentioned trying to clear some space to be more active. At the same time, you also have to consider JT Miller and the possibility of an extension. Have you begun any talks on that front yet?
Well, Patrick and Emily, they work on the contracts. I do believe that Patrick's had a couple of conversations with agents and kind of laying the groundwork, and then Emily will take it over and negotiate the contracts from there. But I would suspect by the time we get to the draft, we'll know where we're at on those situations.
Jim, the Elias Pettersson, you look at his last few seasons, probably not as consistent as you would like. You evaluated, seen lots of young players. What do you see in Pettersson's game? What is, is this what he is? And if he's going to go to the next level, how does he get there?
The way he played in the second half is what he is. He's a terrific player. He's a star player in this league. And what you have to look at this year is he missed training camp. He had an injury that he had to deal with for at least the first half of the season. And to his credit, he got his game on track in the second half. And what everybody saw in the second half is what he is. If we can get a consistent couple of players to play with him, whether he's on the wing or at center, it's going to make it a lot better for him. And that's what we're trying to work towards, that we get more balance, more depth in our organization, where we can actually get lines put together that they can stay together for long periods of time.
When you look at lines nowadays in the NHL, there's obviously a few cases where there's trios, but there's lots of duos, it seems now, more than ever. And ideally the best teams have 3 duos. And you look at Tampa Bay, and you've obviously built cup contending teams, Jim. What about the importance of just kind of like those sandpaper guys that can be a hard line to play against? Do you have enough of that in Vancouver?
No, we don't. And I agree with you. Teams that are putting their lines together usually keep 2 guys together most of the time. We did that in Pittsburgh. It's what we're trying to get to here. But no, we don't have enough sandpaper. And certainly with being in the East as long as I've been, and just following the West on TV and in the Stanley Cup finals and whatnot, being here firsthand, there's a difference in play. And you can see the games are heavier games and whatnot. Now, some teams are changing. You can see LA where they've started to move away from the heavier team to the quicker and more skilled teams, and a few other teams are doing that. But still, it's a different game in the West, and we have to change that. We have to get some guys, not a lot of guys, but a few guys that are a little bit heavier, play with some sandpaper.
Do you think when you look at the West right now, like when you built your teams, Jim, did you look to compete more in your conference and division first? And if so, do you look at teams like automatically in the Pacific, or do you even say, hey, we got to match up so we can beat Colorado, who looks like, they're going to be one of the top dogs for the next few years?
No, we build teams that are capable of beating and playing in any style of game and beating any kind of team. You start building your team to compete with one or two teams, you may not have to worry about that team. I remember in '06 when we won the Cup in Carolina, our biggest fear was Detroit and Ottawa because we didn't match up that good against those teams. And we felt really good about the Hurricanes that year. We felt we had a chance to win the Cup, but it was going to be difficult getting by Ottawa or Detroit. Well, as luck would have it, somebody else beat them out. We never had to play them. So that's why you stay away from, identifying one or two teams that you think that you have to beat at some point in time because you may never play them.
Historically, Jim, the West has always seemingly been a little bit heavier. Do you have any sense of why that is the case? Why the game is a little different in each of the two conferences?
Well, they've had success with it. I mean, when you go back to LA's Cup teams, though they were heavy teams and they won cups, and usually when that happens, teams follow. And but I really feel there's more than one way to win a Stanley Cup. I don't think it has to be just a team built the way that the prior team that won the Stanley Cup or some team that won it 3 or 4 years ago. You have to build your team in a way that is capable of playing all styles of hockey, regardless what team you match up against.
I mentioned off the top and made the mistake calling you the Canucks GM, but I've only really ever thought of you as GM. How different has this role been for you in Vancouver? Has it taken you any time to sort of get used to the dichotomy of the way it's structured, and obviously bringing in Patrick, someone you admired in Pittsburgh, and then filling out the rest of the staff?
No, it hasn't taken me long. I'm at this point in my career that this is a good role for me. I've really enjoyed it. I'm really proud of the group that we put together here. Now we've had a number of months here to work together, and everybody's taken on their role very serious. We have great communication. Everybody works hard. We've got different ideas, different voices. That was what I talked about before hiring these people. And I really like our group a lot.
Jim, do you feel as much as you're doing the job, how much mentoring is going on for you right now in your role?
Well, I've always hired people and let them do their job and give them direction. And here's where we want to get to. And everybody's got to do your job. Basically, what I do is I'm around. And if anybody wants to come and talk to me and, bounce things off me, I'm going to do that. I'll stop in each person's office maybe every other day or sometimes every day just to sit and talk and let them bring things up. But I have to let them do their jobs. These are very capable people. And, with my experience, I've probably seen a few more things than some of these people. And if they need my help, I'm going to give it. Otherwise, they're capable of doing what they've been assigned to do.
When you joined the Whalers, I think it was in 1994, if I'm not mistaken. Who helped you? Like, who did you learn from? Who is the person who maybe just gave you the best opportunity to show your skills in management?
Yeah, when I was a manager in the OHL, it's really where I learned a lot and asked a lot of questions. And, some of the people that I really admired was Bill Torrey and Scotty Bowman and Lou Lamoriello. And these are people that, that I just followed. What would they do in this situation? But when I went to Hartford, I didn't have someone with a lot of experience there that was working in the organization. I just built off the experience I had in the Ontario Hockey League, and I would call these people periodically and say, what would you do in this situation?
Jim, has it been any different for you working in Canada?
I would say so. I think everybody knows that answer. you know, I've absolutely really loved where I've worked in the past, and and looked forward to the opportunity to work with a Canadian team. But as you know, because you're one of these people, um, the Canadian teams are under more of a microscope. And for me, I think it's great because of the love of hockey in Canada. Everybody eats, breathes, sleeps hockey. And I'm in a market here in Vancouver and the province of British Columbia where people love the Canucks, and it's a great feeling.
Jim, you were one of the few goaltenders who was drafted in the top 10 historically. It just doesn't happen very often. Where do you come out on drafting? Because there seems to be a little bit of change. Some people feel like, you know what, some teams hesitate on goaltenders. You obviously, you look at how it goes. I'm sure that you can't just pigeonhole and say, well, I would never do it. Obviously, we've seen guys like Carey Price and Fleury and guys go high, but you played the position. How hard is it to evaluate goaltenders in the draft? And is that why it's so risky, just because it's such a harder position where it seems to be a later developing spot?
Yeah, it's a hard position to take these players when they're young. I drafted a Jaguar in the first round, and then I think it was my last draft in Pittsburgh where we didn't have a first pick, and we wanted to draft a goalie, and we drafted two, one in the second round, one in the third round, because they were the best players that were at that point in the draft, and we viewed them as assets, which it turned out they were, where Pittsburgh traded one of those goalies to Anaheim in the Raquel deal. So I just think that it doesn't matter what position you're looking at, whether it's a goalie, defenseman, or a forward. If you like a player enough, you should take him. You should not hesitate to take that player in the first round. Now, in Vancouver's case this year, with not a lot of players coming in the pipeline, and we have to try to build that up, and we have some good goalies in the organization, it wouldn't make sense for us to take a goalie in the first round. But certainly as the draft goes along, if we really like a goalie, we could end up taking a goalie. We're fortunate to have Ian Clark in charge of our goaltending within our organization, and he does a terrific job doing the background checks on these guys and laying it out to the scouting staff and the general manager as the potential of these goalies.
Ian Clark, one of the very best in the league. Jim, do you pay special attention still to the position? Like I just remember offhand having a conversation with you a number of years back, sort of as, the Penguins were winning that first cup there when you were with them. And, I'd said something like, wow, Matt Murray really looks great. And you had said, hey, look out for this Tristan Jarry kid. He's going to be really good. Is that just something, being a former goaltender, that you pay special attention to?
Yeah, it comes natural, and, I love watching the new goalies. I love watching these guys that are coming up and doing so well. It's interesting about goaltending, though, how it has evolved and how they play different in different eras. And, of course, the big equipment has changed a lot of that, the bigger goalie and the bigger equipment. And now things have even changed here in the last year or two where the forwards have caught on to where the goalies are taking up so much of the net. And now they're getting them to move laterally and moving that puck across where guys have half the net to shoot at. So everything's changing. But one of the things I don't like about the present goalies, and I know I've had some of the experts explain this to me, I'm not sure I buy it, but they're playing with that arm tucked inside the post all the time. And I just see so many shorthanded or short side goals go in now and leaking through that short side. I just think it's better having the arm outside the post, but only my opinion.
I like that. Speaking of goaltenders then, Jim, do you need a backup for Demko that you can play a little bit more so he rests? Is that ideal, or are you fine with a starter playing 60 plus?
Well, we had a backup this year that was capable of playing in Halak. And the problem that you have, if you were the coach or I was down there making the decision, you got a guy like Demko and you're sitting there thinking, who am I going to play? And we got to win this game. It's just natural. You're going to go to your guy that you have so much trust in. But Halak was very capable. He could have played more games this year. And we believe in Mark, the guy that come up and played some games this year. He played really well. We gave him a two-year deal on a one-way contract. So we believe in him. And I give Martin a lot of credit. He's worked hard to get here, and now he's here. So I would hope that we can space the games out a little bit more for Demko, and he can feel just as strong when we're going down the stretch next year as he does when he comes into camp.
Jim, last question. We know that you need to run. One of the big things, sort of getting to know you over the last number of years, you don't talk to Jim Rutherford on game days. Where did that come from? Is it a superstition, or are you just in the zone on game days? I always meant to ask you.
Well, I'm trying to change some of my bad habits, so you can talk to me on game days now. But that was a superstition going back to my playing days. We were playing in a series the year that Montreal had the great year in the mid-'70s, where they only lost one playoff game and I think only 8 or 10 in the regular season. But we won the first game in Montreal. I played that game. Ron Lowe played the next game. We come back to Detroit. It's 1-1. Of course, the fans are all excited and everything. And I'm coming into the game with my family. We're walking in, talking la-di-da like we're going to a family picnic. And here I am a few hours away from playing a huge Stanley Cup playoff game. And we got beat 8-0 that game. And I was so upset about it and so upset at myself because I didn't keep the right focus on that game. And so I just gradually, that's the way it was when I played. And then, when I get into more pressure situations as a GM in Windsor and in the NHL, it just became a bad habit. But just so you know, Frank, you can call me any day you want now.
Yeah, duly noted. Thank you, Jim.
Awesome. Jim, we always like to wrap up with a little fun called rapid fire. A few questions. The only rule is you have to answer the question. So we'll get to it right away. Jim Rutherford, now you've had a lot of reasons to celebrate. What is your cocktail of choice when you're celebrating, whether alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Just a beer.
Just a beer? Okay. Classic. Jim, if you were going to give one word of advice for young scouts, what do you need to do to be a good scout?
You need to work at it. See as many games as you can. Don't leave the game early, and focus on that whole 60 minutes of that game.
Which GM did you enjoy making trades with the most?
I don't know. There's so many. I don't know. I mean, the trade that and Frank's going to remember this, of course, it was with the Flyers, but the trade that probably worked out the best of a lot of trades. Well, there's a few tied in there, but was the trade Danny Markov to the Flyers for Justin Williams. And the Flyers had 3 defensemen injured at that time, and they were in desperate need for a defenseman. He was older than Williams, and so getting that young player that helped Carolina win a cup. But also the Brind'Amour trade was pretty good, and the Kessel trade was pretty good. But those are a few.
Jim, which agent have you enjoyed negotiating with the most?
Oh, I enjoy all of them. I don't, it's funny, like some of these situations are tougher and people say, who irritates you and this and that. I enjoy them. It's the same as the media, the media have a job to do and whatnot, but I don't have any issues with these different people in the game. It's part of the game, and the better you get along with them, the better your life goes.
And lastly, Jim, who Who is the funniest player that is Marc-Andre Fleury the funniest guy you've had around, or is there anyone else?
Well, the Flower, he's right up there. I mean, he's one of the greatest guys in the game that I've ever met. Yeah, he's a funny guy. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are great for a team that have great humor. It's good to have one or two on each team. So we'll just go with Flower for now.
Did he ever prank you?
He did not. No.
Smart man. Jim, thanks so much for this. We appreciate it. Enjoy your off season.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Enjoy it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.